Mm. Yeah, this was a good movie. Yes. Oh, there's another one there. What is this? Oh no. Oh no. Hello American, another review here on my channel. The season final of today. Yes indeed. Or this season anyway. So we're going to look at monster trucks. I just decided to watch it. Anyway. I got interested when I saw the trailer for some reason and I thought it could be a fun movie, but yeah. It was released in December of 2016, at least the first release, and it was produced by Paramount Animation, Nickelodeon Movies and Disruption Entertainment and was distributed by Paramount Pictures. It essentially merges the animation with the live action, but in a really, I will talk about it essentially. It is a comedy movie, it says, but Anyway, let's just jump right into it. You're essentially following the character of Trip, which is a guy that you can say have lost his father, he thinks so at least, and he lives with his mother and her boyfriend essentially, which is a cop. And he goes to school in the town and etc. Work at a junkyard, and yeah, he wants a car and just want to get out of the town essentially. We also get the information that he needs help with his homeworks and etc. to get up his grades, and he gets help of a character named Meredith essentially. And that will basically be the only two characters that I have really actually know the names of, so yeah. But as it isn't really the start essentially is when a company essentially try to take up oil from the ground, and they accidentally release some monsters essentially from this hole they are essentially digging. These monsters are coming from you can say an airway of water, or it's essentially water underground, and when they burrow through it with the drills for the oil, it erupts and they come up, and it essentially throw up 3 monsters. One of them will be one of our hero's friends. I say hero, but yeah. These monsters essentially, you can say, are tentacle animals or monsters essentially. It is a big sea creature with tentacles, but it can be in regular air, on soil and anything. It just can breathe regularly in both water and on the ground essentially. But during this time, this creature essentially, one of the creatures essentially gets to the junkyard or Trip essentially works on his car, and he's trying to get this monster away, or trying to get a better look at it. It essentially ends up with this creature ending up in his car and essentially becoming the engine of the car. And that is where the silliness of this movie just explodes. I also haven't to say that Meredith, that is his homework helper, or trying to help him getting up his grades, are essentially, I would say, deeply in love with him. So yeah. The bad guys that essentially made the characters come up are trying to get them find them and kill them, and yeah. And that is essentially the entire storyline. This movie storyline are mediocre, to say the least. For the most part, I think the premise is interesting, but at the same time it is too silly for my taste, and it ends up being a little bit too childish, if you know what I mean. The creatures in the storyline are becoming engines, and I don't really know how that really work, because some of the time they use the tentacles in order to move the wheels and etc, and it just feels unreal. It is unreal, but it just feels weird. So yeah, the storyline for the most part I think are weak and mediocre at best. I could have had a lot more going for it if it had just been a little bit more serious, in my opinion. It is too silly when it comes to actually telling the story. It could have been more serious, and it could have been a much better movie because of that. Throughout the movie we will see Trip, Meredith and some of their surrounding characters, such as the cop, as I talked about, Trip's boss at the junkyard, one of his friends in the school. You also see the bad guys from the oil company, and for the most part the characters are just, they aren't that interesting, to be frank with you. It isn't, I'm not sounding a little bit disappointed when it comes to the movie, but it isn't just that interesting. The characters are just lackluster in my opinion. They aren't interesting to follow, and they are too silly. So yeah, I don't really like them a lot, and I think they're downplaying a lot of the characters. They're making them more stupider than they actually could be. Just as the bad guys, they just feel a little bit stupid. At the same time, they are, one of them is essentially a scientist, but he feels like he's a slapstick character. Essentially, his joke of is essentially this, what do you call it? Anyway, he's just a joke essentially. Then we had the Meredith character, which is, I don't, for the most part all of the characters are actually really well acted. I will give them that. But when you act the bad writing of the characters, the bad character development, and the bad facing of the characters, it doesn't really work. Even if you're essentially the best actor in the world, this movie will not work either way when it comes to actually telling the story of the characters, essentially. The monsters are the most interesting part of this movie, essentially, I would say. They are essentially, as I said, sea creatures with tentacles, but they can both breathe in on regular ground and in the water, essentially. They also eat oil, so more interesting than they are real human characters, essentially. But it isn't really that much more to talk about, essentially. They are interesting, but sometimes they can be a little bit more too silly for my taste as well. The best part of this movie will essentially be the effects and the animation, because they spent a lot of money on this movie. They essentially spent 125 million US dollars on this movie, and it shows the animations are spectacular, the effects are actually really good in my opinion. Everything in that category actually works a lot in this movie. That is one of the best parts of this movie, essentially. Seeing how the creatures essentially interact with all of the different characters, and how they interact with the cars, and how the effects such as explosions, destroying cars, etc. actually happens. Yeah, it is just really all one of the best parts of this movie, essentially. And as I said, they spent 125 million. It's a high budget for this, essentially a comedy movie. And yeah, they lost they lost a lot. So yeah, but as I said, graphics and animation are one of the best things about this movie. Monster Trucks are a silly, uninteresting movie that have some great looking effects and animation, but that doesn't save it for the most part. When the story are not interesting at all and feels a little bit too silly when it comes to both telling the regular story and when it comes to all of the characters and even the monsters, which I would say are the most interesting part when it comes to characters, at least the creatures and humans in the movie, they also are too silly in my opinion. But as I say, the animation and effects are the thing that actually are the best part of this movie, and if you want to see that, yeah, go and watch it. But overall, this is not an interesting movie. It has some funny bits, but for the most part it is just uninteresting, too silly, and it doesn't really work in my opinion. The final verdict for Monster Trucks is going to be a solid 3 out of 10. Well, all for today folks, we'll see you next time.